The University of Arizona is looking at ways to end racial inequity in health care for people of color. 9 on your side, Shawndrea Thomas has more on what steps they're taking to solve this issue right now. Shawndrea?
Yeah, Pat, it is a major issue, and it's been an issue that's been plaguing the Black community for generations. And while there have been some progress, it's still clear that we still have a very long way to go.
We all need to build this environment where diversity can thrive.
The legacy and issue of racism in healthcare for Black patients in America has always been a pressing issue that has a big impact on if or when someone goes in for critical care.
Studies confirm that patients cared for by someone who looks like them tend to be more compliant with the process of care.
Dr. Victoria Moraine is the Vice Dean for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the U of A College of Medicine in Tucson. She says about 38% of students currently enrolled are students of color.
We also find that a more diverse group tends to be more creative in their solutions.
Scholarships and recruiting efforts are also key to drawing them in. 150 high school students are invited to campus every year to streamline the process.
The efforts have to begin much earlier in the pipeline. We need to encourage our children to recognize that there is no obstacle too great to keep them from becoming who they want to be.
And the biggest issue is trust. This picture posted at the University of Arizona Medical School Museum in Phoenix from the 1840s shows doctors preparing to operate on an enslaved woman without her consent or anesthesia. It's just one on a list of tragic and horrific medical experiments performed on Black people that left families with trauma, a lack of confidence, and a lingering fear of the healthcare system. And they're not alone.
The historical trauma certainly affects the Black population, also affects multiple other populations of color. Native American populations have had to deal with this. Hispanic, Latinx populations have had to deal with this.
Dr. Moraine says the university is working on new ways to bridge the gap. In 2020, efforts to attract students of color was spurred in the midst of unrest over racial inequality and systemic racism. White Coats for Black Lives chapters were formed, and students of all races got involved.
Based on all the social unrest that was going on nationally, our students were very much the activist group and said we cannot continue to do things as usual.
They also have 10 anti-racism themes that students follow throughout their education. Transparency, engagement, and accountability are just a few.
Each of those themes now looks at specific goals.
And the doctor has some advice if you're worried about taking a trip to the doctor.
Have your questions written out or take that person with you who can help you ask the questions that are important to you.
Shawndrea Thomas, KGUN 9 on your side. Apache Junction police have been trying to solve a cold case that left them wondering how a teenage girl ended up dead in the desert with no family to claim her body. Well, now you can help investigators crack the case and hopefully put Apache Junction Jane Doe to rest. It's a mystery that started in the city of Apache Junction with a discovery in the hot Arizona sun that became a 28-year-old case that's gone cold. The date, August 6, 1992, 9:45 a.m. A man is walking his dog at the northwest corner of Baseline Avenue and Idaho Road. That's where he found the body of a young woman in the desert near a dirt road, 90 minutes outside of Tucson. Corporal Marshall Harshman with the Apache Junction Police Department says it's an area known for transient activity.
Well, the medical examiner's report indicated that they were unable to determine the cause of death, but they were able to determine that she was about between 16 and 18 years of age.
With no clue about her identity, the unknown woman became known as Apache Junction Jane Doe. Her body was in the desert anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks.
We don't know that she was murdered. We don't know if she died from dehydration out in the desert. We don't know if she had some other illness. We don't know what led to her ultimate demise.
And her death is a puzzle detectives are determined to solve. That's where the DNA Doe Project comes in. The nonprofit digs deep into the DNA and genealogy profiles of the unknown. Researcher Karen Binder says while CODIS looks at 20 DNA markers, volunteers at the Doe Project examine hundreds of thousands of markers.
We'll take like 2 or 3 DNA matches that are all in common with Apache Junction Jane Doe. And then we build out their family trees. And that's where we look for something called a most recent common ancestor.
The team has solved 44 out of more than 100 cases so far, but need more people to opt into their DNA match database to solve more cases.
Apache Junction Jane Doe, we believe that she's probably half Hispanic and half mixed African American. Her mixed race has made her case harder to solve, and that's one of the things that is such a challenge for us.
This is what we know about Apache Junction Jane Doe. She was found wearing this t-shirt that says Team Gear and a pair of Levi's shorts. She also had a Phoenix Transit token that was valid for 1 student fare, some change, a round piece of paper with a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and she wore this gold ring on her left ring finger. She's around 5'1" with brown hair and a gap in her teeth.
We've had some tips that have come in over the years, and our investigators go out and follow up on those. Ultimately, everything so far has been a dead end.
Investigators were able to determine that Apache Junction Jane Doe might have roots in Pima County, Arizona, Virginia, California, Texas, and Mexico. Now they're hoping that one last push can help them solve a case that left their community wanting answers about a young woman whose death is unexplained but never forgotten.
For her sake, for justice sake, we need to know who she is so that we can figure out what happened to her. I think she deserves that.
Shawndrea Thomas, KGUN 9 on your side.
Offshoot of the pandemic or the rising tensions we've probably all been feeling. Some people are calling it COVID rage.
Yeah, and while it's not a medical diagnosis, a doctor says it can still have big impacts on your life. 9 on your side, Shawndrea Thomas is here with more on the problem and the solutions, Shawndrea.
Yeah, interesting solutions there, Pat and Heidi. The doctor I spoke to says anger is a normal part of life, but if it goes too far, it can have some serious consequences to both your mental and your physical health.
Everyone experiences anger at any point in their lives.
Dr. Kyle Sir is a psychologist at Banner University Medical Center. He's been studying anger for years.
It's more of just this general term to describe the experience of anger, irritability, maybe frustration, associated with consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And while it's not an official diagnosis, COVID rage is something new that's sparking conversation. In some cases, it's a mechanism that some people use to protect themselves.
COVID has really opened up a lot of questions on how we live our lives and interact with each other as people. And we have found that when our lives are impacted so intimately because of COVID, it really does ramp up sort of the frustration that we have in everyday life.
One of the first things you can do to help your situation is to recognize when your level of frustration goes beyond anger and becomes rage. Some people can black out, and it likely occurs when you feel like things are unfair, threatening, or that your life is being turned upside down. Your heart rate can also go up.
We know if we breathe about a pace of 6 breaths per minute, that is when relaxation really takes over in your body. And that's when we can notice the mind starts slowing down. And that's when the anger starts decreasing a little bit more.
There are some ways to help resolve your anger, like taking a break from the situation that has you upset. And if you're not careful, it can create issues with your blood pressure.
Things like exacerbation of other pre-existing physiological illnesses. It can include, kind of chronic muscle tension, issues with arthritis.
Dr. Sir says one of the best things you can do is take a mental time out and think about where you are to get your mind in order and under control before that anger becomes physical.
We want to always be mindful of how we're feeling and be able to express that in healthy ways so that we don't get to this long-term impact of our health because of the anger.
advocate for yourself if you feel something's wrong.
Myra Hubry is cancer-free these days, but that wasn't always the case.
Actually, never thought to do breast cancer exams, anything like that. That's not something I really grew up knowing.
10 years ago, she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was found because of issues with her gallbladder.
I actually had a gallbladder attack, and because of gallstones and getting a CT to check my gallbladder, they caught the bottom of my right breast, which then revealed that I had some suspicious-looking lesions.
Her 4-year battle came with a double mastectomy and 14 surgeries.
I was diagnosed with stage 1A invasive breast cancer, which just means it didn't hit my lymph nodes.
Myra lost her father to melanoma skin cancer and her mother to an aneurysm. Both were medical issues that the family wasn't aware of until it was too late. And filling out medical history forms on the day of her diagnosis was an eye-opening experience. Myra's pages were blank.
I feel that more of the Hispanic culture is very private about these things. I never knew my parents' medical backgrounds, anything like that, so I never thought, it was like ignorance was bliss up until this happened.
According to the American Cancer Society, cancer is the leading cause of death among the Hispanic Latino population, accounting for 21% of deaths. And breast cancer is the most common cause of cancer deaths among Latinas in the U.S.
Even knowing about heart disease, anything like that, we never talked about that until later years. As my mother was ill, did I finally find out some background.
Now this grandmother makes it a point to share as much health information as possible to help preserve the future of her family.
I have not only talked to my children about our family history, I have kept a documentation.
Because sometimes having that knowledge can mean the difference between life and death.
I'm just glad to still be here. I'm going to keep advocating as much as I can. There's always hope. I'm sitting proof of it.
Shawndrea Thomas, KGUN 9 on your side. It's a drug that's been making its way through the streets of Tucson for the past couple of years, and it's called super meth.
Super meth is methamphetamine that's produced at Mexican drug labs. It's very high quality, and it's what the predominant version of meth is in Arizona.
I caught up with Tucson Police Captain John Levitt, who runs the counter narcotics unit. He says super meth has been trafficked in Tucson for years, but the drug busts involving it are getting bigger. Agents recently seized over 200 pounds of meth, and the numbers continue to grow.
Here, the high quality of methamphetamine produced in Mexico caused essentially all of the drug labs locally to stop production almost 20 years ago. As you go to other parts of the country, it's less common because the local production of meth is part of what provides methamphetamine in those communities.
Levitt also says super meth is at least 93% pure, and the high can last up to 24 hours, causing some users to add fentanyl to try and balance out their high. But that combo is even more deadly.
It's cheap enough where I think people are going to max out and eventually overdose and die, no matter what form it comes in.
According to Pima County health records in 2021, about 30% of the nearly 500 overdose deaths in Pima County were from a mixture of opioids and stimulants, including cocaine and meth.
Super labs in Mexico have applied essentially basic industrial rules to producing methamphetamine. You might find super meth better known as crystal meth or as ice.
Another note is meth that's sold in other parts of the country is typically stepped on or mixed before selling, dropping the potency level.
Treating meth from a treatment provider's perspective is more difficult in many ways than treating opioid addiction. Meth is still the #2 killer from addictive drugs.
County records also show that between January and June of 2020 and the same time frame in 2021, there was a record-breaking 59% increase in fentanyl-related deaths, and most of them were under 30.
The one thing that's certainly true, and we can see it from the autopsies of people that overdose, that people should be aware of, is there's probably more interaction between methamphetamine and fentanyl now than there has been.
If you know someone who needs help with an addiction, there are treatment options at Kodak and other available services to help save lives. Shawndrea Thomas, KGUN 9 on your side.
We're keeping thousands of masks out of landfills.
Last fall, the University of Arizona created a mask recycling system to keep the campus clean and green.
I was walking in and one of my employees came up to me and said, "Troy, I picked up 7 masks on the way in from the parking lot."
Campus Rec Director Troy Vaughn says 8 special bins are placed at the main and north rec centers and the Bear Down gym for collection. When they fill up, they're shipped to PPE recycler TerraCycle for processing.
We had a lot of excitement on campus. People were saying, wow, this is great.
Campus recreation and student government joined forces to make it happen.
We found very early on that students were coming to us saying, hey, you know, we're seeing all these masks being used. What's up with that? And can we recycle them?
And what about the numbers?
Literally, we're up to around 180,000 masks now that we have distributed since Labor Day in the fall in campus recreation facility.
The university paid $1,600 to process that used PPE. They're hoping to get new sustainability funding in the future to cover the cost.
Any little thing that we can do to make a dent in what's going into landfills is certainly a plus, even if we have to pay a little bit for it.
According to TerraCycle, the recycled materials are repurposed to make patio furniture, shipping pallets, storage containers, and more. The company has recycled over 110 tons of PPE waste since the start of the pandemic.
The students have been incredibly grateful on campus that we have discussed this with. It's a little cost that goes a long way for our students and a long way for sustainability on campus.
Shawndrea Thomas, KGA 9 on your side.
Situation, Shawndrea.
Well, fire officials say that 3-alarm fire started at around 8 o'clock here in the 3600 block of Hamilton. And again, let me just give you a frame of references. It's directly behind the Goody Goody Diner. Fire crews are still here on the scene, basically wrapping things up, but there are still a couple of hot spots out here in this area. We're told this is a budget inn. This inn has about 84 rooms, and a good chunk of them were affected by the fire. It actually spread through the roof. This is what the fire chief on scene had to say.
Responded in, made sure everybody was out of the building. We had about 4 to 5 units on fire.
At this point, we're told St. Louis City, University City, and Riverview fire departments were on hand. We're also told that there were no injuries, but again, as you can see, fire crews are still out here working on hotspots and will continue to do so throughout the night. Reporting live in North City, Shawndrea Thomas, Fox 2 News. Volunteers are still here, and they are expected to be here throughout the night as they hope for the best. They have also filled over 17,000 bags so far. The machines are working, and the bags are filled. Dozens of volunteers showed up to help fill the thousands of sandbags needed to help protect the city of Alton from rising floodwaters. Residents say it reminds them of the floods that hit the city back in the 70s and 90s.
You have to do what you have to do.
Riverbend yoga owner Vicki Delaney says she moved her equipment to higher ground and made her studio a warming center for volunteers downtown.
Alton has really pulled together. Their flood relief plan this year has been absolutely amazing compared to years in the past. They've learned every flood and they get better and better.
And around the corner at William Street, people of all ages are helping out and doing their part.
See a lot of the adults, and there's been tons of younger kids out here. So it's nice to see everyone giving back to our community.
Businesses in Sauget and Godfrey also donated equipment to make the process easier. Meanwhile, others provided food.
I find it kind of awesome that Alton came together like this. I was pretty surprised at how many volunteers were out here today.
At this point, city officials say they expect the water to crest on New Year's Eve. And with all of the hard work, they will be ready for whatever Mother Nature has in store.
If you come down, please help.
It's really cool to see the entire community come together because it doesn't happen very often.
At this point, we're being told that they are hoping to fill 50,000 bags before it's all said and done. We'll keep you updated on what happens here as soon as we get more information. Reporting live in Alton, Shawndrea Thomas, Fox 2 News. Some say image is everything. And after 3 months of unrest for the people of Ferguson, it is everything as the protest and grand jury decision looms over the city.
I love Ferguson, Miss Sandy. We choose to live here because we want to live in diversity.
Fox 2 found out when you Google search Ferguson, this was the picture that popped up with the city map. Here you can see a protester and law enforcement in what appears to be a face-off. So I made contact with the online search engine on Monday to find out how the picture was selected and got an email response saying, quote, "The photos are automatically and algorithmically determined, generally reflecting points of interest about an entity on the web. In this case, the listing has been updated to reflect a map of Ferguson. And within 24 hours, the image was changed."
You're right.
And that makes Sandy Sansevier at I Love Ferguson and others very happy.
The image that we need is that this is a great community. I love this city, and I want it to continue to grow like it has been growing in the last 10 years.
Sandy says people from all around the world come to their shop with preconceived notions, an idea they're hoping to change.
There was some guys from Norway who had come in, drove them around Ferguson, and they were surprised that the city was not burnt to the ground, the entire city.
While the world and Ferguson's 21,000 residents wait to see what the future holds for their city, one thing's for sure. There are plenty of supporters who want to see Ferguson develop a new and improved place on the map.
We all need to come together to get the perception of this city the way it's supposed to be.
Shawndrea Thomas has the exclusive video that you will only see on Fox 2. Shawndrea?
Well, St. Anne police say they typically see about 5 chases per day in the region, but what they saw today was shocking. St. Anne Police Chief Aaron Jimenez looks at video of this mangled Cadillac in disbelief.
The kids are fine.
21-year-old Demetrius Johnson was driving and decided to run from police because of a suspended license and a lot more.
Thank God nobody was seriously injured.
At around noon on Tuesday, police clocked Johnson on 70 West going 80 miles per hour. When they tried to pull him over, he took off, going down 70 into Earth City and back, reaching speeds of over 130 miles per hour. He finally crashed at 70 East and Natural Bridge.
He sideswipes the median and the concrete barrier, and it spins him out of control.
Police found another man, woman, and 2 kids ages 1 and 3 in the car, along with a loaded gun and 10 bags of marijuana.
You have 2 kids in the back seat, not buckled into a car seat, not buckled in at all. You have zero regard for public safety.
Johnson, who has a rap sheet, was the only one injured in the crash, and there's more. Police also say he didn't want to get caught because he was cheating on his girlfriend with the female passenger.
They're bystanders inside the vehicle, you know, and they're not being charged with anything.
The chief says more people are running from police these days, and departments are adjusting their procedures.
And this has been debated because of Senate Bill 5. Listen, if people don't like the speed limit at 60 and people don't want tickets, raise the speed limit to 70. But I can promise you this, no matter what you put that speed limit at, people are always going to go 10, 15, 20 miles over.
Now Johnson is facing felony flight and child endangerment charges. So far, there's no word on a court date.
And it's a great job by our police department.
Now, at this point, police are waiting to see if more charges will be filed in the case. Reporting live in St. Anne, Shawndrea Thomas, Fox. He's had his chickens for 3 months and he's attached to them, and he'll do everything he can to keep them.
Helen, Foghorn.
Luther Veal loves his 5 chickens.
We have Lucy, we have Foghorn, we have Queen, and we have
Beth. He and his wife Julie are battling O'Fallon City Hall after getting this notice from code enforcement.
Here's my little girl's eviction notice.
The city says the chickens and the coop must go, and they have 10 days to do it. They've been raising their feathered friends for 3 months.
We have a fish pond in this subdivision. So if I got to get rid of my chickens, that means this subdivision is also breaking the ordinance.
I like them. I like having them. I like taking care of them.
Luther and Julie say it took 2 days to put this house together for their chickens, and they're willing to fight to keep them at home.
I'll go sit there, and they like country music, and I'll feed them out of my hand.
City officials recently discussed the issue and decided to not allow chickens. They also said the ordinances of the city of O'Fallon do not allow for the keeping of farm animals, including cattle, swine, sheep, horses, goats, and poultry within the city limits except in agricultural zoning districts.
They're getting ready to go to bed.
While the fight is just days away, Luther will keep feeding, housing, and keeping his chicks safe and sound.
People nowadays want to have backyard birds. We love the eggs, and it's just nice having them around.
Thomas explains how a leaked video from a major church conference put the man's life in danger, and it is a story you will see only on Fox 2. Shawndrea?
This is a very interesting story. Andrew Caldwell says he's speaking out to clear the air about the impact that viral video had on his life, a life he says is now in danger. It's a video that went viral during a 2014 Church of God in Christ conference in St. Louis.
I'm not gay no more. I am delivered. I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women, women, women. I said women. I'm not gay.
21-year-old Andrew Caldwell says the internet sensation has been both a blessing and a curse. Caldwell's testimony of conversion from gay to straight was a hit within 24 hours of being leaked on the web. He also says since then he's received online death threats, phone calls from around the world, and assaults.
The gays is the church people, it's the church, and also the straight people too. I begin to get death threats. I begin to people say, "You're not delivered, you're still gay." And I'm like, wow. And I just confessed it, and I know I am because I have not touched a man a year now. It's been a year.
I also asked the self-proclaimed author about his past troubles with the law and his response to those who say he's a fraud looking for a payout. Caldwell says the videos have millions of views and his Facebook page is active.
I'm not making money off this, haven't made a dime. I'm not trying to. It's just know that we should not begin out. I should not begin punched in my face. I should not begin my car in my house vandalized.
Vital Voice publisher Darren Slyman says most of the LGBT community says conversion is unlikely.
I believe, and a large portion of the LGBT community believe, that it's just an innate section of your life. And it's not something you choose to be, it's something that you just are.
Now all Andrew wants is the church to help protect him until he gets his life back on track.
It takes time and it takes a process, and that's what God is doing. And I just want God to do some things for me.
Now, of course, Andrew says he still continues to write and he's not dating right now. He's also just working on himself. But I also made contact with some folks at the Church of God in Christ who say they have no further comment on Mr. Caldwell or his situation.